Hello, everybody. Welcome to our live author interview. I am so excited this morning to be joined by Kate Naito, who is the author of Small Dog Savvy. Welcome, Kate. We're so happy to have you. How are you doing today?
Hey, Erica. Thank you. I'm super excited for this.
Wonderful. We're excited to have you. Everyone who is tuning in, if you've never tuned in before, you might not know the drill. So we want you to know that this is a live discussion. We want to hear your questions, but we also want to hear from you. So we want you to put some things in the comments for us. So go ahead. We're going to test that out. Let us know where you're joining from. And since this is a book all about small dogs, let us know what kind of dog you have, even if you have a big dog. I am definitely team big dog, but I have a small dog in my life, and this book has been a really great resource for me during that time. So if you're joining us live, we want to know where you're joining from. So go ahead and put that in the comments. And then I also want to let you all know that we are going to be giving away a copy of an audiobook, Love Has No Age Limit by Patricia McConnell and Karen London. This is actually our book club book of the month. So if you haven't read it yet, you could have an opportunity to win a free copy of the audiobook just by asking a question during our live interview today. So feel free to leave some comments. Like I said, we want this to be an ongoing group discussion. We've got people joining from Minneapolis, from Alberta, Canada, with a long-haired Chihuahua. Fantastic, Linda. Talladega with a Maltese. Wonderful. Julie and Laurie and Linda, welcome very much. Kate, I am so excited to talk about this book because this is a book that I got to really work hands-on with, work with you a lot. The publishing process was something we were going through together and learning together.
Yep.
And it turned out just beautiful. I love this book. I love
that cover model. Come on.
This cover model. So those of you who might not know, this dog is Lola. Lola belonged to Juliana DeWillems. She's one of our other authors. If you don't follow her on social media, at JW Dog Training, full of small dog content. She's got a brand new rescue Chihuahua that recently had surgery, and she does a lot of training with that dog. So go follow Juliana. But Lola, actually, I had been following Lola on social media. She was a very reactive Chihuahua for several years. And Juliana did an end of life photo shoot with Lola, and the pictures were so gorgeous. I reached out to her and the photographer and said, hey, how do you feel about us using one of those photos on the cover? And I just love how it turned out. I love this tribute to Lola. I loved working with you, Kate, to figure out how we wanted the colors and the text to look. So this was a really fun project for me. But as we jump in, my first question for you, Kate, is why did you decide to write this book? You've written other books. So what was it about Small Dog Savvy that really was the motivation for writing it?
You know, it's funny as time goes on. I think a lot of dog professionals and, behavior professionals, we start to get more and more into our niche, and we really like to focus on the things that we're so personally passionate about. And I love all dogs. I love big dogs. I will take a big dog any day. But there's something about small dogs that is just very personal to me. And so it's sort of something that organically I'm starting to see the world through my small dog's eyes. I've had small dogs for decades at this point, and that's mostly out of necessity. Living in cities and having to put them in a bag so you can take public transportation, or not wanting to pay bazillions of dollars for my heartworm medication or things like that. All of those little practical factors really kept pushing me towards downsizing more and more with dogs. Until the point where I think that, my brain is part Chihuahua at this point. And I just love them. And I love working with them too, because I think that, as I think the people watching, when you've got a small dog, there's something really special about that.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to the heartworm medication, the food. My gosh, these big dogs, they eat so much more than a little dog. Like I said, I recently got a little dog in my life, unwillingly, and a rescue Chihuahua mix. And she is a piece of work, I'll tell you what. But she's taught me a lot. And also she just eats such a little amount of food. I'm like, well, that's it. That's an easy thing. And I grew up with small dogs. I think that's definitely something that people think about a lot, is like, how is this dog going to fit your lifestyle? Something I love that you discuss in the book is how some people just don't train small dogs as much or as often, or maybe there's a perception that we don't need to train our small dogs because they're just little easy companions. But that definitely seems to be something that we would like to discuss. And another reason for writing this book is saying it is important to train your small dog. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
It really is. And as I was thinking about writing the book, I was thinking back to the interactions that I've had with my clients and their dogs, because primarily I do in-home consults with clients and their dogs. So I'm walking into people's houses, and sometimes you don't know what you're walking into, even though you do so many things to plan ahead for it. And I thought, gosh, the worst reactions that I've had from working, with clients in their homes, it's usually from small dogs. And I get the biggest reaction from the smallest dogs usually. And the very few bites that I've received on the job have always been from small dogs. And it's fortunately very rare that happens. But I thought, gosh, there really is something here that if this were a Rottweiler, we would have addressed this issue so much earlier. At the first sign that the Rottweiler was maybe stiffening up as somebody walked through the door, or something, maybe a low growl, I think the family would say, "Ooh, we need to take care of this now." But with the smaller dogs, I got the sense that families, they love their small dogs. They're such family members, but there might be a piece missing as far as how that small dog is feeling about just regular day-to-day interactions, like the doorbell ringing or going for a walk. And there's that piece that needs to be addressed so that they can have the best quality of life, and also so that the families aren't so stressed out by their dog's behavior. Because whether it's a big dog or a small dog, it's really stressful to walk a dog that is exhibiting reactive behavior or difficult to control. At the very least, it's embarrassing, and at worst, it could be dangerous.
That's such a good point. And I work with reactive dogs. Those are my favorite dogs to train and to do some behavior modification with. But yeah, and I feel like the barking too, like people are just like, oh, well, it's a small dog, so it's allowed to bark. It can just bark. And really something that I appreciate so much in your book is where you're calling out, what about the emotion? What's the underlying emotion that's going on with this dog? And how is this dog feeling stress? And can we have some more empathy for the dogs in our care?
Right. Absolutely. There's, of course, just like talking, there's different kinds of barks. And I think if a dog barks a couple of times, that's totally fine. I would never want to say, don't bark in any situation, because I want my dog to express what they're feeling, and I'd like them to tell me how they're feeling. But when you get that frantic level of barking that really doesn't match the situation, if a car drives past your house and the dog is getting so worked up even after the car has passed, that's not healthy, and that's not really a great state of mind to be in, or physically a great state to be in. And so there's so much that we can do to help small dogs. We shouldn't just brush it off that, oh, they're small, they're barking, they're yappy. Okay, but they don't have to be. They could actually be a lot more comfortable in their own skin and in their own day-to-day life. And you're still going to get the same dog. We're not changing anybody's dog. We're not turning them into zombies or robots, of course. We don't do that anymore, thank God. But we could make them the best version of themselves. And that's the piece that sometimes I think gets overlooked with the little dogs compared to the bigger dogs.
Absolutely. People who are joining in live, I want to ask you all a question. If you are joining us in the chat, where did you hear about this live interview? Did you see it on Instagram? Did you see it on Facebook? Did you get an email? And if you did, if you are following us on social media, how many of you have seen the posts that we've been sharing that are quotes from this book or little nuggets and tips from this book? I'm very curious if anyone has seen this. Actually got posted last night talking about the myths about small dogs. And I absolutely love these myths. We're going to go through them a little bit later in our conversation, but being able to find out where you guys are all joining from or where you heard about this from is really helpful to me. It looks like we've got someone who heard about it from a friend. I love word of mouth. I love it when people are really curious to hear about something and then share it with their friends. Linda found out on Facebook, fantastic, but has not seen any tidbits. So good to know. that we want to make sure that we're still sharing that with people. Again, if you've got a question, feel free to drop it in the comments for us, because that's why we're here. We want this to be a two-way discussion. You guys are all welcome to join and ask your questions. So this is a quote from the book that I pulled, and I'm very excited about this quote because I love this. Your dog's unwanted behavior is actually a great source of information. I think that we so often see an unwanted behavior and are like, how can we fix that? How can we change it? We don't like it. But tell us a little bit more about this, Kate, how your dog's unwanted behavior can really tell you something valuable.
Yeah, and I love the direction that dog training and dog behavior has taken over the last decade or even more at this point, where we're not just trying to shut things down anymore, and especially for smaller dogs. Like I want them to be able to express how they feel. That's really important, rather than just internalizing it. So if your dog is, let's say, barking at some kids who are playing outside your window, that's really good information that your dog is uncomfortable with a certain situation. We have to be careful not to extrapolate why without knowing more of the details, and knowing your dog's history. But if your dog is barking or growling or lunging, he's saying, hey, I'm uncomfortable and like, I need support. And that's really part of the purpose of the book, is to say, let's support these dogs. Let's not just train them for the sake of training. Let's give them the support that they need. And some of that support does come in the form of manners training in some cases. And some of that support comes in the form of behavior modification. And then sometimes that support comes from just leaving your dog alone, not petting him when he doesn't want to be pet, or things like that. So not everything has to have a training solution. But when your dog is growling or barking or lunging or running away or cowering from the harness, like, thank you for telling me. I appreciate that. And I'm going to see what I can do to make this easier for you. And that's really what it's all about. Let's make life easier in the day-to-day for these little guys who, I think they're having a harder time than a lot of us realize.
Do you see that in your personal clients where, there's people who maybe just don't realize exactly what's going on for their dog, or think it's not that big of a deal? And not that we're being intentionally dismissive, but maybe that's something that's happening. Where, how does that usually play out for you with your clients when they have this realization of like, oh my gosh, my dog has really been uncomfortable this whole time?
Absolutely. I see it all the time. And one of the things I hear the most, and maybe some of the viewers can relate to this, I have a lot of folks who say, my dog loves going outside, but when he sees the harness, he runs away. Right, Erica? You work with behavior cases too. So, and we know, it's not about the outside. It's generally, especially for small dogs, about the body language of that harness getting on. And I joke with my clients, it's like, here comes the monster. I'm coming to eat you. And, and of course, we're not trying to be like the monster that's going to snatch the dog. But that's, I think, what it looks like to them. And so therefore, they're going to start cowering when they see the harness, or they're going to start maybe defending themselves from you putting the harness on. And that's so not the relationship I want you to have with your dog. I really want your dog to say, okay, I can do this because I trust you.
Yeah.
Things would be so much easier if we could just lay that foundation. Whether they're puppies or whether they're like Lola from the cover, if they're her age, doesn't matter. You can start that at any age. Like even with my dog Margaret, whose picture you just had up a few minutes ago, she was a rough case in the beginning for us. There's our Margaret. I mean, you can even see it. This was very early on when we adopted her. There's a lot of tension in that little doggy face. And she came to us with exceptionally difficult handling issues, putting on the harness, picking her up. I assume because of prior experience, but she wasn't talking, so I don't know. And we worked really hard and went really slowly for her to feel safe with us. So sitting on the floor, very slowly putting the harness on. And if she wanted to walk away, we let her walk away. And if she growled, at that point, we said, okay, you know what? I pushed you. Take a breather. We never pushed her farther than we had to. And it took some time, but it was the only way to get through those kinds of situations, because nobody wants to have a confrontational relationship with their dog.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think that's such the beauty of this kind of training, is to be able to increase agency for all of the animals that are involved. So I had a little video that I wanted to save for later, but it's coming up now. So I'm actually going to share it with you all. It's about 1 minute long. And I want you guys to watch it and let me know what you see and let me know what you think. Please feel free to leave comments. Something that is so cool about this book. This is something, I think this is only the third book that we've done this in. But actually there are videos in the book. And if people are like, how can you put a video in a book? We've put QR codes and hyperlinks. So if you get the ebook version, you'll be able to actually click on the link. There's something like, I think it's like 42 videos within this book. So
It's a lot of videos.
You did an amazing job, but I've got
Thank you.
3 videos that we're going to share today if we've got time for all of them so that you guys can see. But this is literally, you just will hold your camera up to the QR code, scan it, and it's such a neat like read along to have this, because there's so many things that we can put into a book, and pictures are great and the step-by-steps are really great, but actually being able to see a video example is so powerful. So I want to share a video that I believe is in chapter 7. I'll find that and find out while we're watching the video. So everybody just kind of watch this video and let us know what you think.
Hi, I'm Kate Naito, and this is how I let my dogs opt in or out of walks.
Wait, you want to go out? What was that? Oh, okay then. Here we go.
Here's the same clip again of Margaret opting in. I show her the leash, I ask her if she wants to go outside, and clearly by her body language, the answer is a yes.
Here we go. Margaret, you want to go outside? Want to go outside? Okay, fair enough.
And here's that same clip again.
Margaret, you wanna go
can see
outside?
how she's already hesitating when she sees the leash. She thinks about it. She walks away. She sniffs the ground. She's got the paw raised. And she walks away from me with her tail low, looking over her shoulder. So she's very clearly telling me no,
fair
and that's okay. To learn all about small dog training and behavior, check out my book, Small Dog Savvy.
I love that video clip, and I think it is again such a great example to be able to add into the book. So
Right, to be able to see it, I think is really important for those sorts of nuances.
Yeah, absolutely. I was able to find, I knew I had written down a note. I wanted to make sure. So this is pages 104 and 105 in the book. I found that when I'm holding it up and being like, look, it's right here, people can't really see. So if you want to kind of see what a peek into the book looks like, this is in chapter 7, which is the title of chapter 7 is Essential Outdoor Training for Small Dogs. And this is in a subsection about giving your dogs more choice and giving them more agency. And people who are tuning in, like, did you notice the body language? Did you see the difference with that dog? That was Margaret, correct?
Yes, that was Margaret.
That was Margaret. What did you call her? Scary
Peggy. Yeah, she earned that nickname in my defense.
I love that in the book when I was editing the manuscript. That made me giggle a bit. But if you guys all want to see what a peek inside the book looks like, where you would be able to either click on that link or scan the QR code, depending on which format of the book you have, there is that option to watch a video and have that kind of read along, play along video to see the example. And that example it's really just very spectacular to see how clearly she's communicating with you with her body language. Is that something that you see that people are really good at reading right away, or do they need a little bit of coaching to see what their dog is communicating?
You know, that's a good question. I think with the smaller dogs especially, folks tend to need a little bit of help, because in that example with Margaret, when she said, I'd rather not walk today. And I don't blame her, because if you saw, my rain boots were right there. It was raining out. Like, I didn't want to go out either. but I think that those subtle signs, like the paw lift, the sniffing the ground, then that low kind of skulky body language as she walked away, to me, that was such a nice way of her to say, please leave me alone. If I had pushed it, well, at that point in our relationship, she would have just tolerated it. But in the early days, if I'd pushed it, it would have become something like growling, snapping, biting. And so I think that people are very good at noticing those pieces, the more aggressive displays, but they're not always in tune to some of those smaller kind of micro movements that a dog is making to say, hey, please give me some space. But I think that everybody wants to communicate well with their dog. It's just a matter of pointing those things out. And so that's what the video does, which is sometimes hard to do in words, I think, to show those little bits where they're saying something very clear, and it's our job to listen and decide what the best course of action is. And when you have a small dog, because you could do things like pad training, they could have a potty spot indoors, potentially if harnessing is really an issue for your dog, you have the leeway to then say, okay, we're going to skip this walk and I'll try again this afternoon when the rain stops. And at least in my case, the dogs always the second time are like, yeah, let's go out. I'm bored. So you actually get better behavior as time goes on, and you get more willingness to comply as time goes on, just by being more hands off when the dog asks for it.
It is really incredible. I have also had that experience with the animals that I've worked with, of giving them the option to say no. Once they know they can say no and that their no is going to be listened to, they tend to say yes a lot more frequently.
Right.
And I think sometimes trainers get worried, or, owners or handlers, or I've worked with, pretty high level trainers and all sorts of situations. And they're afraid, if I give my dog or my dolphin or my elephant or my sloth this much agency to say no to a necessary husbandry behavior, they're going to say no and we're never going to be able to get it done. Right. But my experience has been the opposite, that once they know you're going to give them that option, they're like, okay, as long as I can say no and you're going to listen and I don't have to escalate to growling, snapping, biting, anything like that, then it's just such a rewarding thing to know that you're having that two-way communication with your animal.
I totally agree. And I think for those situations where you can give the dog agency, like, okay, we'll skip the walk because you're not in the mood for it, which is fair. Generally, too, it builds that more trusting relationship. So then when it's time for the nail trim, that I have to do it whether you like it or not. And of course, there's methods for that too. But by giving the dog as much choice and as much agency as you can in those like low-hanging fruit situations, I think it really helps with some of those bigger situations when they might not be able to have a choice. Some procedure just has to be done to them, but they'll tolerate it because generally they can trust that you will leave them alone when they need that space.
Yeah. Susan Friedman talks about that. She has a really great analogy about a trust bank, thinking about it like a piggy bank, where you don't want to break the bank, but you want to make sure you're adding more deposits so that if you have to make a withdrawal, you're not having a negative balance, or you don't have to break your piggy bank open and say, I'm taking it all out, all the trust that we've built up in our relationship. And I really love that analogy.
I love that. Yeah. And I think that's a great visual for dog owners as well, to be able to see it that way. Because sometimes you can't, if you're an owner who's having a behavioral issue with your dog, it's really hard to see where it's going to go. For trainers and behavior consultants, there's a certain level of, you got to trust me on this. I know where it's going to go for you, but they haven't seen those results yet. And so visuals like that, I think, are also really, really helpful.
They definitely are. Something that you said a few minutes ago reminded me of a quote that we shared on our Instagram page today. So the first half of this is, we've already seen this half of the quote, your dog's unwanted behavior is actually a great source of information. But 2 sentences later, this is a quote in the book I really loved. It jumped out to me that said, although we may not appreciate the way they're sending a message, your job is to listen, not punish.
Yeah, right. That's totally true. Right. And, that's hard. Even with human relationships, it's hard. But I think the parallels are totally there, though, as far as listening to your dog, even though you don't like what they're communicating to you, and listening to a friend or a family member or a coworker, even though you don't like what they're communicating to you. There very often is a value in that. And deciding, how do we find a resolution in a way that is going to be okay? The difference, though, I should clarify between communication issues between dogs and humans is, dogs are living in our world. And I try to emphasize this in the book too, especially for small dogs. Living in a human world is tough. Everything is the proportion, literally, everything is huge to them. They're getting manipulated with their bodies in a lot of ways that they might not love. They're having to wear clothing that they don't like just because it's either too hot or too cold outside. And so the communication with small dogs, I think, is that much more important because the world is that much bigger, scarier, more dangerous. To be, a snack-sized dog to a coyote or a hawk compared to a full-size dog who could physically hold his own, around kids and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Those of you who are tuning in, just a reminder, feel free to drop questions in the comment box if you have them for us. Kate, we shared a brief preview about myths that erode trust since we were talking about a trust account, and I have shared some of them here. Do you want to so in our, what we shared online, I shared myth 1, 2, and 3, but I did not share all of the stuff that you wrote about each one because social media just wants little tiny blurbs. They don't want the whole book. So I was hoping that by sharing just kind of the headlines, it would perk up people's interest enough to say, well, I don't know, I've heard not to pick up your small dog. I don't know that I agree with that because I've heard this before, and then hope that that drives people to the book or to this interview where they might hear you talk a little bit more about that. Do you want to talk about one or any of these myths that's up on the screen?
Absolutely. I think myth number 1, this is one that I still hear from clients who are struggling to come to terms with the fact that it is okay to pick up your small dog if she is afraid. Don't pick up your small dog just for fun or just because, but if there is a danger, there is a real danger for small dogs. Even just greeting a larger dog that you don't know, I don't do that with my small dogs. I don't greet dogs on leash anyway, but you just never know how things are going to go for your small dog. You're there as your dog's protector and supporter. And so if picking up your small dog is what makes them safe from some kind of a threat, or just makes them feel safe to have that security, then it's absolutely worth it to do. I think when we look at a lot of counter conditioning protocols, let's say we have a dog who's leash reactive, and we might do body blocking and giving space to pass another dog, let's say. So when I'm passing some stranger's dog, I'll ask my dog to get on the far side of me, and I'll swing as wide as possible around that trigger, that other dog. But when you've got a little dog, sometimes the better thing to do is actually to pick them up. It's essentially a body block. It's just a safer body block. And it's something that I recommend to do a lot if you live in an elevator building or you're in a hallway where it's very cramped. Just for your dog's safety, pick them up instead of letting whatever happens happen. So that one for me is really important. I think number 2. Sorry, go ahead, Eric.
I really appreciate that because I've never really, again, I just have not had a little dog since I was a kid, and thinking about using it as a body block or with a big dog, you can swing wide, but just as a safety issue for a small dog, being able to pick them up. And I think something, this has been something we've talked about on live interviews. We had a wonderful discussion with Christina Spalding, who wrote The Stress Factor in Dogs. Years ago now, we've had that conversation, but the myth of being able to reinforce fear, reinforcing an emotion. And you do talk about this in that myth 1. You actually have a great example I'm hoping to share a little bit later on our social media about imagine if you saw a bear in the woods. And I'm not gonna spoil the ending for anyone who hasn't read it, but I love these analogies where it's oh yeah, if I was in that situation, I would definitely not want to be punished or have some kind of painful experience and have it be well, I don't want to reinforce her being afraid of a bear. Kind of I don't know.
Exactly.
I think
I might have somebody who's helped you reinforce your fear of a scary situation. It's never happened to me or any other human I know. So
exactly.
why would it happen to your dog?
Yeah. But even just thinking about it from a safety perspective, from a small dog perspective, I love that you are challenging and encouraging your readers and your clients to say, look at it from their perspective. The world is a much bigger, scarier place when you only weigh 10 or 12 pounds. We had someone who said that they're joining in from Jersey City with an 11-pound Chihuahua mix and a 12-pound Schnauzer Chihuahua mix.
I want to see a picture of that. Oh, I see a picture of that, I think.
And then we've got someone else joining that has a 3.5 and a 6-pound Yorkie. I mean, these are tiny dogs. These are
little dogs, right? Can you imagine, let's say you're in a hallway in New York City. I lived in Brooklyn for a bazillion years. And so I lived through this with Margaret and Beans and about 500 other Chihuahuas that I had. But being in those elevators, I get nervous in an elevator building or in a hallway when I'm in close proximity to someone else and their dog, or even a delivery person who maybe has big boots or something that could be scary to a dog. I feel nervous. If I feel nervous, how does my dog feel who's 4 pounds? Of course, they might be a bazillion times more nervous. So just proactively, I'm totally fine picking up a dog, unless they have handling issues that prevent it, obviously. But yeah.
Now, you do say in, let's see, chapter 4, I actually had this bookmarked, and this is, again, another thing we're hoping to be able to share on our social media. Stay tuned, or just get a copy of the book and read the whole thing. It's great. But you talk about how to teach your dog how to love being picked up. And I have seen more and more of this on social media lately. And I'm so glad to see, like, giving your dog a cue to let them know, I'm about to scoop you up, or giving your dog a cue to be like, I know that you're not opting into this, but I need to pick you up for safety or for some other reason. And really having wonderful step-by-step, how you're going to be able to teach this to your dog. What a great resource that this is here, so that when that happens, we are alleviating their fear or offering them some comfort, instead of just saying, you don't have a choice and this is what we're going to do. And now it's actually worse.
Yeah. And that might work once, I'm going to scoop you up without you even realizing it. But then the second time and the third time, they're going to start to get a little bit suspicious when you start getting close to them. And that's what we don't want to happen. No trickery, nothing like that. I remember one of the first, this is even before I was a trainer, I remember having a friend with a Yorkie. And when she would go pick up, the dog would jump in the air for her to like grab in the air. And I thought, oh, that is so cool. Many years later now, putting the pieces together about, oh, that's actually really, it's nice to have a warning, as long as the dog is okay enough with being picked up, that it's going to inform them that something safe is happening. If the dog really hates pickups, then you should probably talk to a professional one-on-one about that. But yeah, I think warning your dog or giving them a heads up on all kinds of stuff is really, really important. And we're learning that more and more about dogs' brains now. Like, oh, they get a lot more than we thought they got.
That's true. I love all of the science that's coming out about that.
It's amazing.
I'm going to hop back over to our myths so that you have the opportunity to talk about the others if you'd like to. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Oh, yeah. Number 2, if your dog gets uncomfortable in public, you need to take her there more often. So this is not totally untrue, but it's way oversimplified. If your dog is a little uncomfortable in public, just maybe half curious, half a little bit unsure, just regular exposure might get you through that, just through habituation. But if your dog is uncomfortable enough where they seem to be backing away from something, not wanting to interact with the environment, or the environment is too intense, especially for a small dog, if you're somewhere where lots of people in a cafe are coming up to them and crouching over them, or if you're in a dog park, which I don't super recommend, but if you are and there's large dogs there, oh my gosh, like if I were a small dog, I wouldn't get comfortable with that as time goes on. I would get more uncomfortable with those things as time goes on. And so the book does outline ways to work through some of those situations to get your dog comfortable at his or her own pace. And I think that's the real thing with fears, anxieties, discomfort for dogs, where you can't push it. You have to go at your dog's pace. And so if my new dog, let's say my new Maltese, is only comfortable seeing children play from 100 feet away, that's where we're going to start. And we're not going to rush the dog into anything more intense than they can handle without a really clear behavior plan made by a professional, or as outlined in the book too. So yeah, that's my feelings about going out in public. And as far as dog parks, for small dogs, I feel so uncomfortable with them.
I know that there have been a lot of efforts to, separate small dogs and puppies,
which is great.
And then also from large dogs, I've seen a lot of dog parks. I know that people have big feelings about dog parks. Dogwise did an entire book about dog parks that actually is really good. We turned it into
really necessary.
I was listening to the audiobook. I'm like, people should listen to this while they're headed to the dog park. There's some really good tips in here.
Yes.
I think not all dog parks are bad. Not all dog parks are appropriate for every dog. But I have seen the thing that I found to be most concerning with dog parks with separating small and large dogs is not having a visual barrier. And they're running up and down the fence and people are like, oh, look, they're playing. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, stop, make it stop.
Right.
Predatory drift. I just am like, okay, as a professional, I think I need to protect my mental health and leave now. But
it can be very stressful.
Thinking about the public's perception of what behavior means or the interpretation of behavior that might not be accurate, and we can't prove it. We don't know what the dogs are thinking or feeling, but those of us who are canine professionals who have more experience than your average owner, than your average guardian, are going to be able to say, this is a situation that might be too risky or might not be appropriate for your dog.
And I think that's a great point. And the way that I tend to frame it to my clients is, if you're going to go to the dog park, you really have to be on it, and you kind of do have to evaluate every dog that's already in there and every dog that's coming in. And the analogy that I give, having lived in New York City for a long time, is it only takes one unstable person on a subway car to make it dangerous for everybody. And anyone who's lived in New York City knows exactly what I'm talking about. One person who is potentially dangerous, now everybody is at risk. And I don't want that to be your dog in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, when I work with my clients, I say, we're going to go to the dog park and we're going to stay outside of the dog park for at least 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. Right. And we might do an entire training session outside of the dog park with the dogs on the other side of the fence as your distraction for the day. We're never actually going in. And I wish that more people did that, of just like, but again, helping people build the skill of walking up and being like, I think this is safe, but how do I really know? How can I test that? And what observations can I make to give me more information? And that can be tricky. So we're all learning, we're all growing. Kate, we've got a great question from the audience. Jim wants to know, I love this question, are small dogs easier to train than large dogs?
No. I think it depends. It depends on what we're doing. Small dogs are certainly going to be easier to train to get into like a carrying case or things like that. In some ways, I think that small dogs present extra challenges. And I don't know if the viewers can back me up on this or not, but I find, like, for example, leash training of smaller dogs can be a little bit more challenging because they're so far away. And also because small dogs tend to swerve in ways that are harder for you to control with the leash. And I don't mean we're choking them on the leash. I just mean that if a small dog lunges, the way that the leash goes, they could get around you much more easily than if a large dog tries to lunge, because you can keep a large dog closer to your hand. So I do find that small dogs are a little more challenging to teach leash walking skills. Recall sometimes can be more challenging too because of the body language. And I bring this up in the book. The bending down to reward a small dog for a nice come can actually be a little bit aversive to them. It can be a little uncomfortable for them. And so you might have a dog that, especially a small dog, that comes up close to you for come, but they won't come all the way up. And some of that could be the body language of you reaching down. And so the book, and there's a video that's accompanied that section as well, talks about how to be able to reach down and even, touch or grab the harness if you have to for safety. with your small dog still being comfortable. So I do think that they present a couple of extra challenges, like even door dashing. Small dogs are so small that they could just squeeze right through a door that's cracked open. Whereas a Mastiff, he could plow his way through, but he's not going to be slipping through any doors.
That's very true. My childhood dog, I had a Bichon growing up, and she was, I mean, it's always funny as a dog professional now to look back and be like, oh, yeah, here's all the things we could have done a little bit better. Right. But I had a Bichon who was so good at, like, she knew the front door was like, whoop, and she'd be gone. We never taught her recall. I don't even think I knew what that was when I was a kid. And my parents didn't know. It's the 90s. Like, you just have a dog. You don't do all the things that we're learning and we're doing nowadays is so fantastic. But I remember we would chase her down the street, and of course she'd run and we'd run. And now I'm like, yeah, that was a really fun game for her. Like off we go. But man, she was so good about the front door. And like, as soon as it cracked open, she was like, gone, and
and especially small dogs who spend so much time indoors, they have nothing else to do much of the day, except wait for that one moment of fun or wait for that one chance, with our current dog, Oliver. He's such a great guy, but do not turn your back on him if you put food on the table, because whatever home he lived in before, he had definitely practiced, that kind of scavenger hunt where he levitates onto the table at times. So it's, I think if it was like when I grew up in the 80s, we put the golden retriever out in the yard, and I don't know where she went all day, but she came home at night covered in cow poop, and that was a great time. Yeah, that was a great time. But she never did anything naughty because she had so much freedom, and that's what our small dogs don't have. And that makes me sad. But at the same time, our small dogs also want to be with us all the time, and we're inside all the time. So it's a little bit of a balancing act to make sure that they do get that enrichment and that what they need when they're home with you, without trying to look for the naughty thing to do or the adventure to have when you're not looking.
Absolutely. We've got a question from Miranda who wants to know, do you have training treat tips? Small dog tummies can fill so quickly, plus of course total calorie concerns.
Yeah, I always am having like mini panics in the back of my mind whenever, because I do agility with my dog and think, oh gosh, am I filling him up with treats, and with my clients' dogs? So I like to buy treats that are soft and stinky. So usually a meaty flavored, and I don't know if I'm allowed to like promote anything, but soft and stinky is my way to go. And I will just take my thumbnail and take a sliver. So the flavor is pretty strong, but the size is really small. The other thing, if your dog loves dry food, you could certainly use that as treats too. And I just portion out their meals to account for a certain amount of it is going to be treats. But that kind of depends on the dog and their preferences. I'm a big fan of big flavor, really small size.
Yeah, and you're allowed to promote things. What's your favorite treat that you like?
The one that I like for keeping things really small is the Nudges chicken jerky cuts, because you can put it in your pocket and it's not slimy and it doesn't crumble, and you can just slice off with your nail really, really small pieces and it stays intact. So for that, and the dogs seem to like it. So that's usually my go-to, but usually any of the training treats also, I could slice those into about 10 pieces. Yeah. My favorite go-to for different dogs of different sizes is Bill Jack makes I think it's their AmVets treats, but they're in the shape of a star, and you can like they're very crumbly, but I pull off each little leg and then the one in the middle. So I'm like, every treat is really 6 treats. So I've definitely found, especially like training treats, even though they're small, same thing with my thumbnail, to putting it in half or into quarters, even for big dogs, because if I want to do several repetitions of a behavior or really work on something or go for a walk where we're going to be doing leash walking and I really want them with me, absolutely having teeny tiny treats is a good option. I had a live interview with Tim Lewis a few months ago, and I said, I had this like bite of steak that I was saving for my dog, and he did some husbandry thing, and I went to give it to him, and he just swallowed it whole, and I was like,
Oh, well, so much for that. And he said, don't worry, they actually have some taste receptors all the way down in their throat. So he probably tasted it. So,
Okay, that's good
okay,
because
good.
my husband says the same thing every time my dog does get something extra special. It's like, but you just swallowed it. You didn't even taste
You didn't appreciate it. Well, and
he
as
seems very happy about it. So I'm not gonna complain.
And as we now know, dogs' sense of smell is so important that, like you said, having something stinky and smelly that's really enticing for them can be valuable as well. Jim has an interesting question for us. Can you tell right away if a dog doesn't like you?
Can you tell? Right? With a Chihuahua, you can. I'm kidding. I love them. All my dogs have been Chihuahua mixes. So I would say look for not just aggressive type behaviors, because of course, if a dog is approaching you with, growling or, lunging type behavior and stiffness, I would say the dog is not crazy about you in that moment. But also look for the more subtle things, like they might start to approach, but then back away, or their body might be like leaning back a little bit. And in those cases, I would encourage people not to necessarily do the, oh, I love dogs, I'm going to make the dog my friend. There's time for that later. Let the dog get comfortable on their terms. And if the dog wants to stay away from somebody, by all means, let the dog stay away from somebody, even if it disappoints that person. And there's a couple of sections in the book about, first of all, the doorbell stuff, which is quite a challenge for many small dogs. But then also, once the guest is in the house, how to get the dog comfortable with that person. Because for a lot of small dogs, the first couple of minutes, the dog's not really sure if that person needs to be in the house or not. They're ready to show that person the door. But as the time goes on, many of them settle in. And then once you're in the club, the dog club, then everything is fine. And if that's the case with your dog, then the book does have a couple of techniques for how to interact with the dog safely without pushing the dog beyond what they're comfortable with. I never hand feed a dog that is uncomfortable with me. I don't want to be strangers with candy, but I might do some little treat tosses. And I might, honestly, depending on the dog, I might just ignore him and sit quietly and let the dog warm up on their own time. Sometimes with small dogs, less is more.
That's a really great answer. We have a couple of books that we recommend for people who are looking to dive deeper into dog body language and understand some of the nuances for whether or not a dog likes you. And I can say that I know that you have recommended these books because they're in the recommended reading section.
Yeah, they're great.
The back of the book. But On Talking Terms with Dogs, Calming Signals, this is one of my favorite books. I truly, truly wish that it would be a dream of mine if every single person who owned a dog or worked with a dog read this book. I think it would be so powerful for the world. I was very lucky to get to interview Turid Rugas a couple of weeks ago, and we had some great conversations about calming signals. Another book that I keep on my shelf within handy reach is Lily Chin's Doggy Language. This is such a great book that has wonderful illustrations in it. It's a book that I say is good for all ages. This is something that anyone could really hand to a kid, to anyone who has a dog or wants to learn more about dogs. Wonderful, wonderful illustrations. And of course, On Talking Terms has tons of pictures in it. There's actually a video that goes along with there was a DVD that was put out. So this is such a quick, easy read, lots of pictures. And this is just a fun, cute book that both of these resources can help. And I do know that in the book, you talk a lot about that, the do's and don'ts of interacting with small dogs, especially like you said, when you're first coming in the door and there's the doorbell and could they slip out the door and all of the things, but then the leaning over a dog of any size, but especially a small dog, can be really intimidating for them. Yeah. So making sure that we've got those resources available to people. Are there any other books that you would recommend for body language or resources you would recommend, Kate?
Oh my gosh. I mean, just go through the Dogwise website and there's so many. I think I would recommend, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like pretty much all of them. One of the ones, although maybe it's not so body language specific, but one that really was impactful for me and for a lot of other owners that I know and trainers was the stress factor.
Yeah.
And being able to just see dogs in this light and what they're going through and that experience, you know, on the physiological level, that I think for someone who's really interested in understanding their dog on a really deep level, I love that book.
Yeah, that is a really, really good one as well. I always forget this, and then I'm in the middle of doing the interview and I'm like, oh yeah, we also have, actually, sorry, not that one. We want this one added to the stage is, Barbara Handelman has a photo illustrated handbook. This book is actually on sale $20 right now. It's usually $50. We've got 3 different books that Dogwise has on their website that we have an overstock of quantities of stock right now. And this is one of them. Another one is, I think it's Roger Abrantes who wrote it, and it's Dog Language. That one is a really great resource as well. And again, they're all available and they are all on, it's Dog Language. Yes, it is Roger Abrantes. Let's see if I can get that one pulled up for you all to be able to see. An Encyclopedia of Canine Behavior, normally $20, now $12. And the last one that we have, I should have prepared this ahead of time because this always comes up. People are like, oh, what body language books? And these 3 books, we've had them on sale for a couple of months now at really, really discounted prices. The other one is Brenda Aloff's Canine Body Language, a photographic guide. And these are actually huge books. They're big, massive.
Yeah, they're so comprehensive, those books. When I was early in my training, those particular books that you're just plugging now were really so helpful in me becoming a better trainer. I would look at those books and then go to a dog park and really kind of compare to get a better sense of things. And I would encourage anybody to do that. Read one of those books and then take that information and go watch some dogs. Even on YouTube, go watch some dogs.
Yeah. Or social media. That's the one that whenever I'm like talking about on talking terms and the calming signals, once people see a calming signal and can recognize it and see what's going on, all of a sudden social media becomes really fascinating because I'm like, oh, that was a lip lick. Oh, that was a turn away. Like they're subtle, right? And we shared a quote. We're going to share it again in a couple of days on our social media where you're actually talking about how growling is something that we actually like. It's something that we want to appreciate. And in the book, you say, as strange as it may sound, dog training professionals appreciate growling. Yeah. But you also say, we wish dogs wouldn't feel threatened enough to growl in the first place, because by the time your dog is growling, things have already gone too far. So we've missed something. We've missed those more subtle signals that the dog is uncomfortable. And now we've escalated. And one of the reasons that I know people say dog professionals appreciate growling is because it's not a bite. They're not escalating to the next step. They're still giving you a warning signal.
Absolutely.
But heard or seen, people who think, oh, growling is bad. We don't want our dog to growl. And how do you respond to that?
I think sometimes the easiest thing to do is actually to show them in those situations, because I do sometimes go into people's homes and the dog might growl at me in a certain situation. And mind you, we always keep everything very safe. We use barriers, but not every dog is happy to see me. And I think rather than telling people what to do, sometimes the best thing to do is show them that I never punish a growl. I don't stare at the dog. I don't do any of these sort of scare tactics that they may have seen elsewhere. Really, my job is to, I call it, use the therapist voice, where I'm as calm as possible. I may or may not be having the dog do treat scatters off to the side, or I may or may not be asking the handler to do something with the dog to keep them in, good frame of mind. But I think for them to see it in action really is a lot more meaningful than for me trying to explain why you shouldn't punish a growl.
One of my favorite analogies for punishing a growl or telling your dog, no, bad dog for growling. One of my favorite analogies was that's like taking the batteries out of a smoke detector.
That's a great one.
You could still have the house catch on fire, but you're just not going to know about it. So
exactly.
Yeah, not punishing a growl is really important.
Yeah, and we had to work on that with Margaret because she didn't growl in the beginning. She just went straight for a bite. And anyone who saw her little face there, she had quite a face, and so it was really scary when she got growly and snappy. And we gave her that space to be able to growl. And we listened to the growl and we backed off. And that's when we started to see a behavioral change with her in a good way, that she's started, reacting less intensely and actually growling more, which was in that case a good thing. And ultimately, became a really great family member who's always going to have a quirk or two, but really the best version of herself.
That's such a great success story. And I think it actually reminds me of what we were talking about earlier with the going on a walk or not, like respecting the no.
Right.
Even when you were saying like low hanging fruit, right? Do you want to go on a walk or not? Yes or no? Do you if you growl at me, I'm going to give you more space. Then they don't have to escalate. When they know that they are being listened to,
Right.
they're able to feel more confident. And like you mentioned, at that point, we're building trust.
Right.
Our dogs are able to trust us and trust that we're going to respect what they're actually saying to us when we stop and listen to them.
Right. Do I want to be right or do I want to be happy with my dog? And I don't need to prove anything to my dog. And so I would much rather have a good relationship with them and skip the walk or take the walk myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll ask them later if they want to go.
Absolutely. Opting in is important. Linda said that she was lucky enough to go to a seminar with Brenda Aloff. So Brenda Aloff is the author of Body Language, a photographic guide. And so those of us who were not as lucky as Linda to be able to have a seminar with Brenda, this is, like we said, a really great resource.
Yeah.
Mr. Merv's School for Dogs says, I love the smoke detector analogy. It is a really good one. It's something that really makes people like, oh, stop and think. Yeah, that is.
I think we should all steal that one.
It might have been Ian Dunbar. I think I heard Ian Dunbar say that. Don't quote. It's not my idea. It's someone else's brilliant idea, not mine. But please feel free to disseminate it as needed. So I don't want to run out of time, and I want to make sure that I share at least this last video if we don't have time for the other one. This is a really wonderful page in the book. It is pages 30 and 31. On page 29, you're talking about how not all kisses mean I love you. And I really appreciate that. We found this image. Actually, I found this image online, which kind of makes me laugh that it was a stock image that was like dogs kissing people. And I'm like,
I know.
Oh, no.
Yep, I know. And that's the thing. When you look at these pictures, you know that, that's not what the stock photo people are picturing we're going to use it for, but this is what we're going to use it for. Yeah.
I once did an entire seminar where it was an online thing, and I went and Googled it. Actually, I think it was on Canva. If you search for a video clip of a happy dog, and the stress signals are off the charts. And I'm just like, oh, perfect. This is all great. And then it's growling and angry dogs. And people are like, a dog with a bone who's happily chewing it. I'm like, no, all wrong. Everything is wrong here. But that's okay. It's our job to help people have a better understanding. So, but on this page, you're talking a little bit about the importance of, again, we're talking about agency and giving dogs more consent. Mm-hmm. So I want to share the video. If you're just now joining us, or if you're joining late or watching the replay, this book, one of the amazing things about this book is that we've added these QR codes that you can see in here, and you'll be able to actually watch a video inside of the book. So I'm going to play that video for you all now.
Hey, I'm Kate Naito, and we are going to take a look at the petting consent test. So what you'll see with Beans is I'm petting her for about 5 to 10 seconds, and then I stop. And she clearly says, hey, pet me again. I leave my hand in a position where she can ask for more pets by nudging me. Now, she's my dog, so I know that I could pet her for longer than 5 seconds, but if it's a dog that you are not familiar with, I do recommend keeping the pets very, very short and waiting for them to ask for more. Whereas Beans used her nose, Margaret uses her paw to ask for more pets. Now we have Margaret, who gets some pets, and then when I stop, she promptly walks away and completely ignores me. So even though it hurts my feelings, I have to respect her choice that she does not want to be pet right now. And when she does want to be pet, she's going to tell me. To learn all about small dog training and behavior, check out my book, Small Dog Savvy.
I really love Margaret. Was it Margaret or Beans that was pawing and
Margaret.
saying, more,
Yeah.
more. That's so clear. It's such clear communication. Yeah, exactly. I went ahead and put this in the comments, but those who are tuning in, do any of you do the 5-second petting test with your dogs? Or if you work with client dogs, do you recommend this to your clients? Because this is something that I have definitely taught my daughter, who just turned 5. You know, I'm seeing so much more with people saying, you know, don't reach out and pet a strange dog, you know, if you're on a walk. And I love it when I've got clients' dogs out and I hear parents coaching their kids, you know, don't reach out and touch that dog. You have to ask, is it okay? But something that I'm not seeing the total shift yet, and it's starting to happen, is yes, ask the person holding the leash, but how do we actually ask the dog?
Right.
How do we ask the dog, do you want me to touch you or not? And especially a strange person on the street. And small dogs are just so cute, right? Everyone just, that's right. We just want to touch them.
Oh,
but
completely.
Really giving them that consent and giving them that opt-in is so, so crucial.
I totally agree. And it's funny. Anyone who's seen the book knows that I am a little bit of a wacky dog mom, and I put my dogs in spikes so that when we go on walks in the park or in the woods, part of it is in case a coyote jumps out and tries to eat my baby. But part of it is also just regular walks. And obviously I don't want people, especially kids, getting injured touching my dog, but I also want parents to get the memo already, like, hey, maybe we should not pet this particular dog. And I think that especially with small dogs, they're just so cute and they're fluffy, and the mini golden doodles, like who can resist? But if we can actually outfit them in something that indicates maybe that somebody should back off a little bit, I think it's easier for parents to coach the kids through that when it's clear from a distance, rather than letting the child get up too close. And then you as the dog handler have to make this executive decision about what to do. I like things to be super clear from the get-go, which, and I do that usually with kind of the equipment that the dog is wearing.
That's a really great tip. I have given the advice, I've seen the advice, and I've given the advice of, I think that all dogs should learn muzzle training, that muzzle activation is such a great skill for dogs to have. Yep. But there's an interesting thing where, like, the more dogs that are muzzle trained, the more it becomes a social norm. But there are a lot of people out there who, when they see a dog on a muzzle, they give them a wide berth. Absolutely. I put my reactive dogs on muzzles all the time, because if I've got my personal dog, really does not like strangers coming up to him. But if he's wearing a muzzle, he has never bitten anyone. But if someone sees him in a muzzle, they're like,
yeah, they're not going to say hi.
Probably be like, I don't think I need to pet that dog. Exactly. I don't know why it's wearing a muzzle. And so that is, again, I love the spiky coyote vest. I was looking for a picture of it. If I'm able to find it, I'll share it with everybody. But yeah, if you've seen I know what picture you're talking about, because it is, I found it. It is on page 106. You'll be able to see the preview of the spiky vest.
Like a conversation piece.
Yeah, quite. I bet
it is. I mean, that's the thing. You will attract people. They won't come up to pet your dog, but they definitely are going to want to ask you what kind of fashion statement you're making. And it's not a fashion statement. It's a safety statement. But that's okay.
It's a good thing to talk about. Good conversation starter. Ultimate Toys said, love doing the consent test. I think it helps build a lot of trust too. Fantastic point. I know Diane and Dave, who are watching live, we've done a lot of events with them. They sell a lot of our books when we go to conferences together, because there's so much crossover there of being able to have this. And like we were talking about earlier with the building your trust account, being able to build up and have your dog know that they can trust you. Exactly. And Amy also says yes to a consent test. Yes. Photo of dogs and small dogs and spikes. I'll see if I can find it, Amy, when we watch the next video. I'll see if I can get a better picture up for you guys. And yes, muzzles. Absolutely. Yeah. It's such a great resource, and such, like you said, having something where it really is communicating from a distance what's going on and helping people understand that.
That's
We've
true.
got one more video I want to share. When we were working on this book, one of my favorite aspects of this book that as a big dog owner, I really didn't think about a whole lot was teaching your dog how to get into a carrier and be comfortable being in a carrier. And I think this is one of the most valuable things about this entire book is all of the really wonderful detailed information that you included on how to help get your dogs acclimated to being in a carrier and also to stay in a carrier until you give a release cue, not because we're trying to control the dog, but for safety.
Just for safety.
And saying like, hang out here because, you know, the bag might start to move, or I don't want you to jump out as soon as I set it on the floor. And really the thoughtfulness that you put into this chapter and into these pages really shows. So I want to share, the QR code is in the book. It does not appear on this page. You'll be able to kind of just see a preview of this adorable puppy who's over here.
This little thing. And he's a guy who loves to travel. And that's what we want. We were just hanging out and he gets in the bag and he's like, let's go, ladies, let's have an adventure. That's exactly the feeling I want my dog to have when they see the carrier is let's jump in and have fun.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, like you said, like we want it to be something that they are excited about and not something that they dread. I will admit, I actually started using some of this to train our cat to get into a cat.
That's such a
carrier
good idea.
Because I think like small dogs, people don't train their cats that often, but it's an important skill because when your cat has to go to the vet, if that's the only time you ever take out the carrier, or even for your small dog, if you're only ever taking out the carrier when they're going to the vet, they're going to start to know and anticipate that. So I want to share the video clip because I just love this video so much. So if you guys watch along and let us know if you have any questions.
I'm Kate Naito, and we're teaching your dog to jump into a bag. These are just some of the steps that you'll see in the book. The first one being that I sprinkle treats around the bag, not in the bag yet.
There's one here. Oops, I dropped it in there.
And once she's comfortable with that, I start dropping treats into the bag as well as outside the bag.
It's in there. It's in there.
You want the dog to jump into the bag themselves so that you know they're comfortable with it. And then you'll see Margaret gets a whole bunch of treats in the bag. I sprinkle a few on the floor of the bag so that she's having a really good time in there.
Okay. Good job.
And after I say okay, I encourage her to get out of the bag.
Wow, very good. Come on, get it. Good job.
Now I'm using the cue get in and giving her lots of little rewards in the bag. Once the dog is totally comfortable in there, then you can start to lift the bag for a few seconds. Keep in mind that this will take you several sessions. Margaret's done this before, although it's been a while, so she's already comfortable with this process. And as I lift the bag, she gets some treats. I continue giving treats once it's on the floor because I don't want her jumping out until I release with okay.
Okay. Good job.
To learn all about small dog training and behavior, check out my book, Small Dog Savvy.
Love it. Absolutely love these little videos that are interspersed throughout the book that really show the steps broken down in a way that people can see it in action instead of just read about it. Such a great
because I need those. I can't for myself to learn something. I need to see it in action.
Yep, absolutely.
It makes it so much better. And you know, the teaching Margaret that it was interesting because when we got her, we spent a little bit of time in Brooklyn, but then we moved to the suburbs. So we didn't really need the carry bag that much. But I do remember some times where, because she was guest reactive at that time, there were a couple of times here and there where we needed her to be out of the house when somebody came in, like a plumber, and it was just easier to take her somewhere else. And so I actually was using that carry bag to take her, you know, on my errands basically, but I could completely enclose her in the bag. She was with me. I knew nobody was going to be touching her because the bag was fully zipped. And she would take these really fun little trips with me while the plumber, you know, fixed the bathtub or whatever it was. And so even if you don't live in a city, I think that the carrier training is really important. I just had a client who took an impromptu trip to California with their dog from New York, and they hadn't carrier trained the dog, and it didn't go great. So I do think that there's a lot of value in just being ready for when the unexpected does happen.
Absolutely. Also thinking about when earlier we were talking about, big dogs tend to go on more adventures. What a great opportunity for your dog to be able to go on more adventures if you're going to take them with you to run errands. And of course, safety is important, and not leaving your dog in the car and making sure you're taking them into places that are safe for dogs to go into, or it's allowed. But what a great opportunity to let them just sniff the world, but in a safe way, and have a little bit more exposure and enrichment. Mr. Merv, School for Dogs said, love the videos. I do too. I think that, like I said, there's such a great addition to the book, and you did such a great job, Kate, filming those and adding them. As I know, when we were organizing them by chapter, and then the editors are changing the chapter order, it's a thing.
It was a team effort, and everything came out the best possible solution. So that's good.
It did. We have a couple of things I wanted to add in here. You have some sections at the end where you're talking about reactivity versus aggression. One of the things you talk about at the beginning, and it's really well detailed in the book, is the significance of pain and illness when it comes to reactivity or aggression. There's a whole section. Pain and illness are not a type of reactivity, but I actually just pulled the headings from this chapter to let people see all these different kinds of aggression. That, aggression is such a big label, and thinking about what's really going on. Is it barrier frustration? Is it redirected aggression? Is there any predatory behavior going on? Is it fear aggression? There's just so much, and we don't have time to deep dive into it now. So I want to, again, invite people to definitely read the book, go buy the book, check it out, because there's just so much in there. But before we close, I do want to share this quote that I really loved. And would you read this quote for us, Kate?
Yes, this is, I'm going to get this tattooed, I think, onto me. Do not expect a greater behavior change from your dog than you would expect from a human who is undergoing therapy. Because your dog really is going through a little bit of a therapeutic intervention when you do behavior modification for fear, anxiety, aggression, whatever. And as we know, people can be in therapy for a very, very long time before they have some sort of a breakthrough, or before they really see measurable results. And thankfully, dogs are a little faster than people, but we can't expect them to become a different dog overnight. And so we have to have a lot of compassion towards that process.
Absolutely. Before we close, I also want to let everyone know our next opportunity for a live event is going to be our book club. We're doing an online book club. It is on Zoom, so it's a little more interactive, where you're actually going to be able to jump in and chat and talk with us. The book club pick of the month is Love Has No Age Limit by Patricia McConnell and Karen London. So we welcome anyone to join us. It's open to anyone. I also do like to say, you don't actually have to have read the book. You don't have to own the book. If you're just someone who likes to talk about books and dogs, please come join us. It's a free event. It's on Zoom. We've got the information on our website. It's all over our social media. But if you have questions, reach out to us via email or social media, and we'll let you know and send you the link. And as a special thank you to everyone who joined us today, we are including a coupon code. The coupon code will be FBLive20. If you purchase a copy of Small Dog Savvy from the Dogwise website, either the physical paperback book or the ebook, you can get 20% off when you check out using the code FBLive20. I also want to let you all know that coupon code will be live as soon as this broadcast ends. So rush over to Dogwise, go get your hands on the copy of this book. You will not regret it, especially for you small dog owners. Kate, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for your time. And for everyone who tuned in, thank you for coming, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you, guys.